And now for something completely different. Always wanted to say that in front of a desk, so it's my chance. Hello everyone. So tonight I've been listening to Dr. Gabor Mate, who is an extremely perceptive person who has really grasped so much about what it is to be human, which in a sense is what all the films I ever make are about, really. What is it to be human? So I've been running an interesting experiment over the last couple of weeks, which is to do without the very plants that normally help me to keep myself on an even keel. And what I've discovered in that time is that I've gradually been feeling more and more distress and pain. And I've got things which are going on in my everyday life, which is certainly something that I'm keenly aware of. My mother's situation causes me great distress, no doubt about it. And because time is an illusion in terms of the sense of linear time, and everything's currently going on, there are many instances in my life which have also been very distressful, such as my wife's experience with cancer, my own experience as a child with sex abuse, and all the rest of the things that I don't even get round to mentioning. So, like many people, I've experienced lots of trauma, lots of pain, very, very common. And I notice as I start to speak about it, I instantly go into a place of making it very deadpan and matter of fact and not connecting to my emotions, because that's just an easier way to do it. So, as well as Dr. Gabor Mate, I want to bring in this person here who is writing under a pseudonym, and it's called Confessions of a Sociopath. And the pseudonym is M.E. Thomas. And it's one of these random books I came across in the library, as I do. And that really helped me to remember. And I find that's what life is so much about. It's about remembering, because we have experiences, we know about these things, and then we move on, and linear time takes us off on our little journeys, and we tend to forget about the significant things. So what's been going on for me for the last 2 weeks is I've been so keenly aware of distress, discomfort, pain and trauma. And the book is talking about what were the incidents in her life that caused her to be able to be labelled as a sociopath. And she had quite a dispassionate attitude towards this, and she actually wanted to find out for herself whether the label fitted, and got herself tested and discovered that, yeah, the label does fit her. It makes a lot of sense. And she describes certain things about her life which I am really not able to empathize with at all, because it's totally alien to my experience. And one of them is having a small mammal in her swimming pool, and she can see it's trying to get out and it's swimming and it's struggling, and the choice would be to fish it out, or to leave it to die, or to try to kill it. And first she starts to try to kill it and fails, and then goes off and leaves it to die. Whereas to me the obvious thing is just take it out, wouldn't you? Seems so obvious, but that's where she was at with that particular experience. But she talks about a lot of other things which I related to very strongly personally. And in fact, on one occasion in my life, someone did talk to me and say, "Are you a sociopath?" And it's like, what does that word even mean? So the bit that really got to me reading the book is she talks about when she was a baby and she used to be left to cry herself out. In other words, she would wake up from a sleep in a room in distress, and she would cry for attention, as babies inevitably do when they want human attention, because all babies want connection. So she's crying for connection, and she didn't get it, and so she would cry herself out. And my experience as a baby was, because of the fashion at that time, what was believed was the best thing you could do is to put the baby in the pram outside and leave the baby outside for long periods of time, and then bring him in to feed him and change him and then pop him outside again. That's the best thing to do. That's what they did in those times. So I would have had the experience as a baby of crying, waking up crying for attention, and there being nobody around to hear that cry, and therefore the attention not being obtained. So I would like to talk about what I regard to be the three states of the human being, because all human beings want connection. So let's go to the idealized one. The most idealized state that all human beings want is they want a positive response. So when they cry for attention, whether it's a baby or whether it's a person speaking quite rationally, I could really do with some time and attention now, or whether it's a young child saying, please give me some attention, mum, please give me some attention, dad, whatever it is, that's the most desirable thing, is they're going to get the positive attention, love, connection, whatever. That's the most desirable thing. Well, if they don't get that option, if that one's gone down, then we've got two others left. So we start with the three options. The first one's gone, so we're now down to the second one. The second one is negative attention. So this would be abuse, violence, torture, torment, all sorts of things. So this is actually not as desirable as the first one, completely obviously. But if you can't get number one, the human being will go for number two, negative attention. It's better than the third option, but not as desirable for the first. So, but if the first two options have gone down, no positive attention forthcoming, no negative attention forthcoming, then that puts us into the third situation. And the third situation, which is the most undesirable state for a human being, is no attention. So anyone who's experienced neglect, that's no attention. That is infinitely more harmful than the other two states. So it's the most undesirable state for a human being to experience is no response. And we all know that, because if we speak to someone and they don't answer us, we know how it feels. It feels awful, doesn't it? And we've all experienced this. I'm sure we've all actually done that to people at different times. I know sometimes I do it to people still. There are times that I just get so triggered and there's so much feeling comes up and I don't know how to communicate, so I don't end up saying anything. That happens as well, doesn't it? So what I've had the chance to experience is very, very keenly the third state, the state of no attention, and realizing that because time is an illusion, the sense of linear time, in a sense there's a part of me that is always that baby in the pram that is not crying because the baby's given up crying, because the baby knows there's no point, because the baby knows that it's not going to get any attention, because that's the way it is. So in a sense, this is the pain that I carry with me all the time. And when I experience my mother's acute distress being in the home, there she is, desperate for attention. Poor mother, I so understand what she's going through. And she's not on her own, because there are people in the home and she does relate to them, and there are other staff. So it's not the same as what I experienced being in the pram, but it's still really tough. And she does have this thing about being kind of a non-person, not really alive, not really dead. She doesn't have all the rights that you and I have. They're able to watch this film. She has no access to the internet for a start. I mean, it's inconceivable for most of the people watching this film, but there we are. That's right, a care home and there's no internet. Insane, isn't it? But there you go. So that's what I'm in the process of exploring. So when we take things to help us, and people use the word addiction, it's such a funny thing when they say that, really, because as Gabor is pointing out, the issue is not the substance or the behavior, it's actually what is the cause, and it's human trauma. And the other thing that he brought up, which I found was fascinating, was ADHD, and I never really understood what it meant, that term, but he defines it very simply as someone's got a racing mind, which is just the monkey mind racing, full of thoughts, and won't shut up. And I don't know about you, but I get my moments when that hits, and it hits really hard. And that's when I find one of my greatest solaces, which is to pick up a book. It's amazing, because unlike with the TV or the screen or the film or whatever, this actually requires that I use my brain to actually construct a virtual reality. That's why books are so powerful. So when I'm reading about this woman experiencing her life as a sociopath, I actually am being her, and it's like being in this totally immersive super experience where I'm actually being her, being a sociopath and having her experiences. And so one of the fascinating things about sociopaths, as I can grasp from that, is because these people, they had the third option when they were very, very young. The first two are gone, and they're left with this one, which is no interaction, no input. That creates such a state of desperation that prevents the person from fully forming the connections, because they didn't get the connection at that crucial time. And if they are not very intelligent, or they are suffering from all sorts of other unspeakable horrors, then that means that they become a person that becomes like a bit of a monster, and they can behave horrifically with other human beings. Now, what this woman did, which I really relate to, is she realized that was her propensity, was to become a monster. So she trained herself to study human beings very intensively and to get to understand why human beings do what they do, because she wanted to be able to connect and relate. And that really struck a chord with me, and I realized that being a teacher as I have been, and being a retreat host as I have been, and being a shamanic practitioner as I have been, what I absolutely loved about those activities is it gave me the opportunity to really study human beings and to find out how they worked, and to find a role for myself, to find a way that I could fit in and connect with other people. So I would put in a vastly greater amount of effort than someone who hadn't been through the traumas I've been through as a baby. But the advantages I gained, which is what she gained too, is we both gain the advantages of a better understanding of the human condition. And there are other people that are very close to me, and I've noticed that that's what they've chosen to do in their life, because they've had this lack early on in life, so they've worked really hard to make connections. So it's been a really fascinating experiment doing without the medicine that helps me to function much better. And I've noticed a massive drop in my creativity, and a significant part of the day where I'm basically not really able to function hardly at all. Less amounts of brain fog and all the rest of it. And one of the points that Gabor makes is, he says it's very interesting when you think about it, because human beings have got this system, the endocrine system, with endorphins, and endorphins are the natural opiates that human beings can create within themselves. And of course, for those who aren't able to do so, or can't do so enough, then it's obvious they're going to be attracted to opiates and opioid drugs to satisfy that need. And then there's the endocannabinoid system, and we've got the cannabis and the cacao and the other plants which naturally attach to that one. And it's very obvious to see how, by working with these plants, that can actually help us to, first of all, soothe the pain that many of us are carrying constantly in our lives. It's just that most of the time people aren't aware of that. Of course, another thing that people can do is they can go into overwork. That's a great way to deal with the pain of being human. That's a really good one. Just throw yourself into constantly being active, constantly being busy. Yeah, but for those of us who don't do that, and that one's no longer available, or we're choosing not to do that, then it's interesting to see how these other systems can actually help us, first of all, live with the pain in a more constructive manner, and to have our brains working more effectively, and to, long pause for this last one, reconnect with our creativity, and finally connect with ourselves and our full human nature, and with other human beings, and with the plants, and with the nature, and with the environment, and with the cosmos, and with everything. Because ultimately we're here to connect, aren't we? So there you are. That's just how it came out tonight. Thank you very much.